Hi, I welcome all of you to part 2 of chapter 16. The lips of her wound had hardly been drawn together when Ira was on her feet again. Where do you go? I said to her. Rest a little longer, the marks are still livid. Rest? She said contemptuously. How can I rest? Or anyone rest? Can you not hear the child? So contemptuously means angrily. Where do you go? I repeated. Tell me only where you go. Do not ask, she said. It is better that you should not know. She was combing her hair, letting it fall away from her neck, first one way, then another, until the whole head and hair was sleek and shining. She had not troubled so much since she was a bride. I saw her go out in the dark, sari tightly wrapped about her, saw her walk to the town along the narrow lane which ran past the tannery, following it to where it broadened with beady shops along one side and tawdry stalls on the other, where men with bold eyes lounged, smoking or drinking from frothing toddy pots. She moved jauntily, stepping with outrageous fastidiousness means excessive care amid the litter of the street, the cheap sugar cane, the trampled sweetmeats, the red betel nuts pitter jauntily, a half smile on her lips answering the jeers and calls that were thrown at her, eyes darting quickly round darting quickly round, searching them, retreating behind half-drawn lids at each turning leading from the street, and there were many of these dim lanes and alleys. She paused and advanced a little along it and waited lost in the shadows. So here is a imagery of how Ira goes into prostitution and how she engages in prostitution amid the various jeers and calls from the men. I must know, I said, imploring. It is better that I should know than that I should imagine. Ira gave me a sidelong glance. Your imagination would not travel that far. So Ira knows that Rukmani does not know the world outside. You do not know me, I said, troubled, and I no longer understand you. The truth is unpalatable, she replied. I pondered a while, searching my memory. Then it came to me. The man who had called after Raja's death, he had said the same thing. The truth is unpalatable. Unpalatable means difficult to accept. Nathan came in from the fields at sundown as Ira was setting forth, had been clearing the irrigation channels and strengthening the dams. The fork he carried was caked with soil and water. He thrust it into the earth and leaned on it. Where do you go at this hour? It is better not to speak. I will have an answer. I can give you none. Nathan's brows drew together. She had never before spoken to him in this manner. Looking at her, it seemed to me that almost overnight she had changed. She had been tender and modest and obedient. Now she had relinquished every one of these qualities. It was difficult to believe she had ever been their possessor. Nathan was groping for words, stumbling a little over them. I will not have it said. I will not have you parading at night. Parading means going on prostitution at night. So Ida has uh, grown to a situation where she retaliates with her father. So Ida has become stubborn. So we can see Ira's contrast in her old character and the new one. I will not have it said, I will not have you parading at night. Tonight and tomorrow and every night, so long as there is need, I will not hunger any more. Like a harlot, he said, a common strumpet. So a strumpet is a prostitute. This is what hunger can drive a person into. The veins in his forehead were standing out on each temple, a pulse throbbing fiercely. Iris stood defiant before him, uttering no denial, fingers plucking at the fringe of her sari. I closed my eyes. I could not bear to see them thus. These are but kind words, she said at last. There are other kinder ones, which for decency's sake, decency, he spat at her. So some gruesome imagery is given here. Do not speak of decency. She was quiet for a moment, and he said with deliberate cruelty, no man will look at you, defaced as you are. The cuts will heal, she retorted. Men do not seek my face. I think he laid a restraining hand on her, for I heard her say, "Let me pass," and there was a slight rustling sound as she withdrew from his grasp. So this is the desperation of a father, Nathan's failure as a husband and a father. He is willing to accept things as they are and not accept change. So morality, we can say morality versus hunger in here. Well, we let her go. We had tried everything in our power. There was nothing more we could do. She was no longer a child to be cowed or forced into submission, but a grown woman with a definite purpose and an invincible determination. We had for so long accepted her obedience to our will that when it ceased to be given naturally, it came as a considerable shock. Uh, And yet there was no option but to accept the change, strange and bewildering as this was, for obedience cannot be extorted. It was as simple as that. We forbade, she insisted, we lost. So we got used to her comings and goings as we had got used to so much else. With her earnings, Iravadi was able to buy rice and salt and milk for the child, who was too weak for anything else. After the roots and leavings we had existed on, I was grateful enough for the food, but of what she bought Nathan would not touch a morsel. Day after day he went out as before, delving and striving for food as thin and dry as a hollow bamboo stick. What is done, I said, urging him to eat. There is no stricture on you, for you have tried. I will not touch it, he said, eyeing me steadily. What bitterness was behind this I do not know, or what condemnation of his powerlessness to feed his children. But this I do know. His spirit was very strong, and he was an upright man. So Nathan accusation, he feels bad for what Ira is doing. Actually, he feels that it is because of him that Ira had to go on prostitution. For the first few days after Ira resumed feeding Kuti with milk, he seemed to grow better, but the improvement, if improvement it had been, I do not know, for he had ceased to cry, and we took this for improvement, did not continue. Soon it became clear that he was sinking. His eyes grew large in his pinched face. There was a brightness in their soft brown, as all say that was left of life was concentrated there, and indeed they seemed to be the only active part of him. From his corner, when he was no longer capable of any other movement, his eyes constantly followed us, seeming never to tire in their restless wandering. Otherwise, he lay quiet like a bruised fledgling, with the dry, parched lips of exhaustion, and a body which could struggle no more. Only once I heard him call, a slight whisper that barely reached me. "Amma." "Yes, dear." "I cannot see you. I cannot see anything." "I'm here, my son, very near you." There was a feeble movement of his arms, and I knelt beside him and clasped them round my neck, holding them. Therefore he was too weak. "Sleep, dearest. Soon you will be better. Then you will be able to see again. I promise you will see again." He seemed content. He accepted the lies I told him, and sighed little, perhaps in relief, for who knows what fears tormented his child's mind. Soon I felt him relax, and losing his hand, gently drew away from him. A little later I heard a slight sound, and turning saw that he had opened his eyes and was gazing at Ira, staring at her unwinking. I went to him and saw that his eyes were sightless. Already a thin film was overspreading them. I picked him up and held him to me, his slim, emaciated body so light I might have been holding a handful of leaves. Not a child, sagged lifeless against mine. I groaned to him, forgetting he was dead, until the cold came creeping through his limbs, and he began to stiffen. Then at last I laid him down, closing his eyes and pushing back the fronts of hair that clung damply to his brow. He looked tired, but very calm, with signs of suffering taken from his countenance. Countenance means face. Nathan came and knelt beside me with harsh, swollen face and bitter eyes. Our last child conceived in happiness at a time when the river of our lives ran gently had been taken from us. I knew too well what he felt. Yet, although I grieved, it was not for my son, for in my heart I could not have wished it otherwise. The strife had lasted too long and had been too painful for me to call him back to continue it. So, we can say that death is considered as a relief from hunger and pain. The writer has been able to capture and present a vivid description of a mother who faces the death of the son. So this is an emotional chapter, and the father feels helpless. Ira's prostitution and Kuti's death is also shown here. Mother feels the sorrow of death her daughter has had to do prostitution. And the success of the writer Kamala Markande expresses simple things in a desperate, descriptive manner. Interesting, which interesting style of writing, dealing with the manner in which they work, created their weakness. And as we discussed before, Ida's turning to prostitution to provide for the family. And as a conclusion, can say this chapter deals with Kuti's death and Ida's prostitution. So with that, we can end chapter 16. And in the next video, we'll meet with chapter 17. Thank you for listening. Do subscribe to my channel, like this video, and click the bell icon for more notifications.